Hello everyone. Welcome to the TCS NQT Advanced Coding. I am Soundarya, a technical trainer from Genesis Training. In this session, I'll help you go through all the advanced coding questions that had previously occurred or in the previous years in the TCS NQT coding exam. By now you would be familiar with the exam pattern. But just to brief up, there will be two sections in the TCS NQT exam. First section is the foundation section and second is the advanced section. Advanced section is again divided into two sections. One is the advanced reasoning and numerical ability. Second, the advanced coding. So advanced coding second, advanced part is totally having 115 minutes time allocated, and in that 90 minutes of duration is only allocated to the advanced coding to solve three questions. So these three questions will be, the difficulty level will vary from intermediate to advanced. So planning how to manage time will help you answer all the three or code all the three. You are free to choose any of the programming languages you are familiar with. Now let's look at the few of the coding examples or the few of the coding questions that had appeared in the previous TCS NQT exam. So just take a minute to go through the problem statement and we will walk through. An automobile company manufactures both a two-wheeler and a four-wheeler. A company manager wants to make the production of both types of vehicles according to the given data. First data, the total number of vehicles, that is inclusive of the two-wheeler and the four-wheeler. And the second data consists of the total number of wheels denoted by W. Now, the task is to find how many two-wheelers as well as four-wheelers needed to manufacture as per the given data. We have to input two data, the total number of vehicles and the total number of wheels. According to this data, we are supposed to find how many two-wheelers and how many four-wheelers can be manufactured according. I think there are several constraints to this as well. Yes. The total number of wheels W should always be greater than or equal to 2 because we are considering only 2 and 4-wheeler. So the minimum should be 2 wheels. Yes. And second constraint, we are considering two-wheeler and four-wheeler. So when it comes to two-wheeler or four-wheeler, it should be an even number. The total number of wheels should be an even number. Otherwise, the input is invalid. Or the third constraint, the number of vehicles should not be less than the number of vehicles should always be less than the total number of wheels. In either of the three cases, we should print an invalid input. So this is how it works. So the input format for testing, if you can see, the candidate has to write a code to accept positive numbers separated by a new line. First line will be to accept the value of V. Second will be to accept the value of W. The output, the written program code should generate two outputs, each separated by a single space character. Additional messages in the output will result in the failure of a test case. So, any other output apart from the two-wheeler and the four-wheeler printing will be telling it's a failure of the test cases that we provide. To take an example, so let's take an input value of 200, that will be the value of V, and 540 the value of W. Output how it is supposed to come is, so the 540 wheels, out of 540 wheels, how many two-wheelers can be made, how many four-wheelers can be made is the question. So, simplifying it, 70 into 4 the four-wheelers will be 70 vehicles and two-wheelers will be 130 vehicles. To understand this better, let us solve it this way. So now let's denote the two-wheelers as X and four-wheelers as Y. Okay, so what happens here? X plus Y should give you the total number of vehicles. Agree, right? So let us take this as the first equation. And the total number of wheels should be equal to the total number of wheels belonging to two-wheelers as well as four-wheelers. So that would be 2x plus 4y is equals to w. Let's take this as the second equation. Now the task for us is to simplify these two in order to get either the value of x or y. If we have to get either x or y, we have to eliminate one unknown. For that, if we can multiply this equation 1 by 2, so it will result in 2x plus 2y is equals to 2v. So subtracting equation, let's take equation 3. Subtracting equation 3 from 2, we will get 2x gets cancelled in the equation. 4y minus 2y is equals to w minus 2v. Right? So here it will be 2y is equals to w minus 2v. So y will be nothing but w minus 2v divided by 2. How do you convert it into programming? So w minus 2 into v whole divided by 2. Here now what is the value of y? It is four-wheeler value. Right? As you can see here, it is a four-wheeler value. Now how do you find the value of two-wheeler? Two-wheeler is what? X value. How do you find it? So total number of vehicles is equal to two-wheeler plus four-wheeler. Right? Or nothing but v is equals to x plus y. Here substituting the value of Fw, we will get Tw is equals to V minus four-wheeler. So this can be used to find the value of two-wheelers and this formula can be used to find the number of four-wheeler. Coming back to coding, let's see how this can be coded. I am using an online compiler for this. The students can choose any language of their choice, C, C++, Python or Java or any other language of your choice. But see to that you manage your time for each coding questions accordingly. So to start off with this problem, so what is the input that we are supposed to take? We are supposed to first prompt the user to enter some value, right? Enter the total number of vehicles. That is denoted by V, right? Enter the total number of vehicles. So we will take it as a scanner input and ampersand V, right? So then we will also prompt the user to enter the total number of wheels. To enter the total number of wheels. So that will be denoted by W. So scanf %t since it's an integer input, comma, ampersand W. So we have taken the input so far. Oh, we have not initialized. Let's initialize it. Int v, comma, w, comma, we have to denote the two-wheeler as well as four-wheeler. So two-wheeler to TW, four-wheeler FW, right? Next, what is the constraints that we saw? Constraints, remember? Yeah. The total number of wheels should be always greater than or equal to 2. We discussed why we are using this, right? So, if the number of wheels is less than 2, the number of wheels is less than 2, or if the number of wheels is not a even number, is not equal to 0, or if the total number of vehicles is greater than the number of wheels, in either of these cases our input will be invalid, right? So in this case we will just print a printf invalid input, right? So it will be an invalid input, return 0. Otherwise what happens? Four-wheeler, we found the formula. How do we do that? In the bracket, W minus V into 2, and the whole thing is divided by, sorry, V into 2, yeah. It is divided by, what is the formula? W minus 2 into V divided by 2. So divided by 2. And two-wheeler, it is nothing but V minus the total number of 4 wheels. I hope you understood till here. And now we have to just print the value of this. So printf two-wheeler count is equals to percentage T, and four-wheeler count is equals to percentage. So this will be, we have to substitute the value of TW and FW. So this will give you the exact print. Have we missed out declaring anything? No, I think. So we are good to go, and we'll try running the program. So enter the total number of vehicles. Let's use the examples that we have seen. So 200 is the value of V and 540 is the value of W. Let's see this, 200 and 540. So it should give you the two-wheeler count is 130 and four-wheeler count is 70. If we have to try this for another test case. So what if your number of vehicles is greater than W? So 450, let's take the number of vehicles as 450 and number of vehicles is 45. Okay, or yeah, 145, let's take it. Let's take it 145, anything is fine. So it should be printing invalid input. Let's take another case. So let's see if the number of wheels are odd. So here I'll just give some random 23 vehicles. So I'll give 3. So it should be an invalid input. Otherwise, if the number of wheels is less than 2, number of vehicles, let me give 4, and less than 2 will be 1 or 0, I'll give 1. So this is also an invalid input. Second program statement. Okay, just take a minute to understand this. I'll read it out for you. Given a string S, the input is consisting of star and hash. The length of the string is variable, and the task here is to find the minimum number of star or hash to make it a valid string. The string is considered valid if the number of star and hash are equal, The star and hash can be at any position in the string. The output will be a positive or a negative integer based on the number of star and hash in the input string. So for that, if the number of star is greater than hash, then the output will be in a positive integer. Otherwise, if the number of hash is greater than the number of star, then the output will be a negative integer. Otherwise, if the number of hash and star are equal, then the output will be a 0. So if you can see one example here, our input is given as 3 hash followed by 3 star. So the value of S is that one. So the string consists of 3 hash and 3 star continuously. And the output should be what? 0, because the total number of hash is equal to the total number of star. So how do we deal with this? So how do we uh, let's take three possibilities. Of the three possibilities, let's take. See, the number of, in the first case, the number of star should be greater than the number of hash. Right? So, this will be resulting in 1 or a positive number, because we have to take the difference between this and this will be 3 minus 2 will be 1. In the second case, let's take the number of hash being greater than the number of star. In this case, it will be minus 1, right? Because it will be 2 minus 3 will be minus 1. In the third case, what will be the output? If the number of star and hash will be equal, it will be 0. Because 2 minus 2 will be 0. But how do we approach this while we code this? How do we approach this? So this is a string, or this can be a string, or this can be a string, anything. Let's take a string as this. Okay. We will traverse from the first element to the last element. So how do you know if that is the last element? You always know in C, the strings end with a null character. So we will make use of this point and we will loop through the entire string from starting position to the last position until a null character is encountered. Till then, we will check for the number of star and number of hash. So if each character is equal to this character, we will increment the counter for the star, and we will also increment the counter for the hash if a hash is encountered. What if the user enters, in spite of giving an instruction, also what if the user enters anything other than star and hash? Then if it is a dollar, is a greater than or a less than, is equal, any symbol doesn't matter. So it should result in an invalid input, right? It should result in an invalid input. So how do we handle this condition? So we will use a for loop, and inside the for loop we will check for each character starting from 0th position till the last position. So we'll check for each character. If this character is equal to star, we will increment the star counter value. Otherwise, if the character is equal to hash, we will increase the hash counter value. Otherwise, we will print invalid character or input or anything. So let's see how this works in coding. I'll just take off the previous code. Okay. Now here, let's take, maybe it will be useful if we can take the counter as a function. Okay, let's take counter as a function. For now, we will close this. We will take counter function to count the number of hash and star. Before that, let's initialize few values. What is the input that you have to take? Sorry, I have to take a character or a string I have to take. So let's say I've taken a character string of size 100, and then I'll prompt the user to enter the value of the string. enter the string, then scanf %s, str. Next. I said we have to call a function. Let's pass this str to a function and analyze what happens. Okay. So we have to we have to define the function before the main function. So the return type, let us take it in a let us take it as an integer value, because either it is positive, negative or 0 is the return value. Let's take integer value and let's say the function name is counter. Here we have to pass the string, so you also have to take the argument as a string. So here we are doing it in terms of a character array, that doesn't matter. Now next, how do you proceed? We have to loop through all the elements. Before that we have to make use of hash and hash star counters, right? So hash count, let's initialize it to 0, otherwise it will take a garbage value, and hash done star counter, star count is equals to 0. I think fairly this is enough. Next, so we have to traverse through the array. For that we will use the for loop, initialize I to 0, because we have to start iterating from the first character of the string. So next, what? S of I, the S of I, till the S of I being a null character, you have to loop through the character array. Now I plus plus. So what happens? Now we have to check if the S of I, if S of I is equals to, what is the first one? Let's take a star. Let's take a star. We will increment the value of the counter, star counter. So star count is equals to, plus plus. We will just increment it. Otherwise what happens? Else if S of I is equals to a hash character, then we have to increment the hash counter value, hash count plus plus. Otherwise, what if the characters are entered are other than star and hash? What will you do in that case? If you have to handle that, let's just return some value, and based on that return value we will handle the output accordingly. So just say return -1 as a flag will not be possible, because it will clash with the star count and the hash count. So let's take some random number, 999. So this will do. So return 999. And in any of the cases we have to return the first we have to take the star count minus the hash count. Star count minus the hash count value we have to take. This value should be returned here. So let's take int difference is equals to the, we have to make a function call now. So what is the function call? Counter, and here you are supposed to pass the string value. So this is how the function call is made, and now we have to handle this -999 case. When we return -999, we have to handle it separately. So what we have to check, if the difference is equal to -999, in this case what we have to do, we have to say it's an invalid character. So printf invalid character, right? Or invalid string, let's say invalid string. So return from the main program as well. So we will just take return 0. Otherwise, we have to difference. We have to print the result. So printf the difference in star and hash values we can use is equals to percentage %. So this will be, we will print the difference value here. We will print the difference value here and that is it. So return 0, return 0. I hope we have included everything almost. Let's see if this works. Okay. So let's try to run this program. Else if. So here it's a problem and hash count. There is another hash count. Okay, here it should be hash count. If there is any error, else. Okay, since there was an error in the line 18, line 20th was an error. It showed an error. Now I think we are good. Yes. Let's take one case where the total number of string and hash are equal. Sorry, star and hash are equal. So the difference in star and hash values is 0. Yes, it is obvious. And let's take another example where hash will lead the star values. So in this case, the difference should be -1. And let's take another example where the number of stars will exceed the number of hash. So in this case, the difference in star and hash values will be 1. So we also have to check the characters apart from star and hash. So now let's see that. Let's take this one. Let's also include star and hash. Let's include star and hash at the beginning, so we will know if this is working fine. So it's an invalid string. So any string other than star and hash is considered to be invalid. So this is with the second program. I hope you're clear with this. So with this, we will move to the next question. What is the next question? So you have a third program statement telling, given an integer array of size n, the task is to find the count of elements whose value is greater than all of its prior elements. There is also a note given, first element of the array should be considered in the count of the result. So let's see an example for this. There is an array of size 5, maybe here. As 7 is the first element, it will be considered in the result. 8 and 9 are also the elements that are greater than all of its previous elements. So 8 is greater than 4 and 7 and 9 is greater than 2, 8, 4 and 7. So since total of 3 elements is present in the array that meets the condition, output will be 3. So output will be 3 here. So this is the problem statement. So how do we think of coding this? How can we think of coding this? So we have to keep one counter value. So we have to keep one counter value to increase, to counter value to increment the value of the counter when an element is greater than its previous elements. So let's take an array 4, 7, 8, 2, 8. Let's take 8 to 8. Okay, this is an array. This is a single dimensional array. Now the task here is to find how many elements are greater than their previous elements. The condition or the note that is given in the question is first element is considered in the output because it is obviously greater than other elements. There are no elements prior to it, but the first one is considered. First element is considered. Now, in the second case, 7. 7 is greater than its previous element 4, right? So, 1, 2, the counter value will be increased here. And the third element is 8. So, it is greater than 7 and 4. Yes, it is greater than 7 and 4. So, this is also considered. Next, you will go with number 2 or the fourth element. So, we have to check if this element is greater than these two. Okay, for that we will use the relational operator. We will traverse through all the elements in the array starting from the 0th index to n minus 1 index. So, this counter is not increased here. The counter still remains 3, and it comes to the when we traverse the last element, 8, is it greater than previous elements? No, 8 is equal to 8, so it is not considered. The counter value will still be 3, and at the end when you print the value of count, it will be 3. For this, can we consider maximum number as the array of 0 first? Can we consider maximum array of 0 first? No. Since we have already since we already know that we have to increase the counter from 1. So we will initialize the counter to 1 beforehand, and we will start iterating from the second element or at the index 1. So from here we will take it forward. So let's see how we can code this. Let me erase the previous previous code. So we have to include the stdio.h library #include stdio.h. Now, so let's go jump into the main function. So what should be there here? Let us initialize an array. Let ARR of 100. Let's take this. The array size, let's take it as n. Okay. And let's see whatever we require. Okay. So now we are supposed to enter the size of the array. Enter the size of the array. Enter the size of array. Now scanf %t ampersand n. So now we have done this. Now we also have to input the array values. So suppose the size of array is 10. We have to input 10 elements. So printf enter the array elements. Enter the array elements. Now what should we do? We have to use a for loop for I is equals to 0. We have to before that declare int I less than n, because we are traversing till n minus 1 index element or position. So it should be taken as I minus n, I plus plus. So here what do? We have to scan the, we have to scan the elements. So scanf %d ampersand. We have named the array as array ARR, array of. Now that we have input the value of the array, what are we supposed to do now? We have to, let's take another function. Let's take a max element counter as a name of the function. We have to return some value here. So int count, let's take int count is equals to, let's call a function called as max counter. Max counter, and here you have to pass the array as well as the size of the array. So if you pass in here, let's define a function first. The return type of the function is integer. The name of the function is max counter, max counter, integer input. Let's take ARR only, and this will be int n itself. Okay, so int n int n itself. So here, what do we do next? Let's take one count value. So int, no problem if you're repeating the variable names, it's absolutely fine. You are allowed to do so. Let's take this as the counter value, and maximum element, let's initialize it to maximum uh, max element. Let's take this max element will be array of 0. Max element will be array of 0. A counter value, let's keep it to 1. Yes, we discussed this. And now we have to traverse through all the elements. So for that we will be using a for loop. Now I'll traverse through the first element, since we already know the second element, since we already know the first element is included in the count value. So I is 1, I less than or less than n, and I plus plus, right? So this is how. This should be a semicolon, and this is the, now comes the real part. Now what are we supposed to do? If the array of I, if this array of I is greater than the max element, if the array is greater than the max element, what are we supposed to do? We have to increment the counter value. We have to increment the counter value, count plus plus. The next element is greater than the previous element with each iteration. And what we are supposed to do, max element will be made that max element will be made the a of ith element. So this will be the max element. So in this case, we have to return the count value. Return the count value. Now we can see how many elements here are greater than their previous elements. Here we have returned the count value. So max counter array of n. So we have returned the count value. Here we will print the, using the printf function, we will print the number of elements greater than their previous elements is nothing but the count value. So the count value here, have we considered everything? So here int count, yes. Here max element I, okay, we have to end it with a semicolon. I think fairly it is done. Let's try to run the code. So hash include stdio.h. I'm sorry, it has become studio. A is undeclared. Okay, I am supposed to take this as ARR. Okay, that's done. That's taken care of. The number of too many arguments for the format. So the number of elements greater than their positive elements. Yes. I don't think so. That's a warning. Yes, it's a warning. Enter the size of the array. Let's take the size of the array as 5. Let's take 3, 2, 815. Let's take 32815. So the number of elements greater than their previous elements. So here we have to print the counter value. Okay, here we have missed out on using the percentage t, so that's why it's an error. I'm sorry. Uh, Enter the size of the array now. So let's enter 5. So enter the array elements. Let's take 2, 1, 3, 7, 10. So in this case, the number of elements greater than the previous elements is 4. 2 is included, yes. 1 is not greater than 2, yes, it's excluded. So 3, it is greater than 1 and 2, so it is counted. 7, yes, it is greater than 3, 1 and 2, it is counted. 10, it is greater than 7, 3, 1 and 2, yes, it is counted. That's why the counter value will be 4. I've made a mistake here. Elements, yes. So let's try to run this again. We will give the array sizes, let's say 8 elements. Let's say 8 elements. So let's take 10, 3, 1, 2, 8, 4. How many elements done? 6 elements done. 3 again. Let's take 5. Now, the total number of elements greater than their previous elements is only 1. Why? So 10, yes, 10 is greatest of all. Yes, considered. So, meaning the first element is always counted, so the counter value will be 1. 3 is not greater than 10, so it is not counted. 1 is not greater than 3 or 10, it is not counted. 2 is not greater than 1, 3 and 10, so it is not counted. 8 is not greater than 2, 1, 3 and 10, it is not counted. 4 is not greater than 8, 2, 1, 3 and 10, so it is also not counted. 3 is also not greater than any of these. 5 is also not greater than the 10. So the number of elements greater than their previous elements is only 1 here. What if we give all zeros and check? So let's take size of the array is 5. Let's take 0, 0, 0, 0 and let's take some number 90. Let's take it as 90. Enter. So the number of elements greater than the previous elements will be 2. Because the first one is always counted, it is always considered to be greater than every other element. So that is counted. Next 0 is ignored. That third element is ignored because it is equal. Fourth one is also ignored because it is equal. And fifth one is greatest of the previous 4 elements, that is considered. I think by now you would have got a fair idea of how the questions are there. The first and the second question appeared in the September 2023. If you can see this program, this had appeared in the September 2023 TCS NQT program, and this question had appeared in the TCS NQT September 2023 question paper, and this one, yes, it had appeared in the previous years. I hope these three problem statements were clear to you. Now let's look at the fourth problem statement. Just take a minute to understand this. I'll read it for you. A chocolate factory is packing chocolates into the packets. The chocolate packets here represent an array of n number of integer values. The task here is to find the empty packets of chocolate and push it at the end of the conveyor belt. So the question is as straight as possible, right? So instead of giving push the non-zero elements, push all the zero elements at the end of the array. They've just created the sentence in a beautiful way to confuse you. So you should be in a position to understand what the problem statement is about. it is as plain as it is. So here if you can see the example, n value is 8 and the array is given. 8 elements in the array is given. So there are 3 empty packets in the given set. There is the third packet is empty, then the sixth packet is empty and the eighth packet is empty. All these empty packets are to be put at the end so that they can be refilled. So in the input, yeah, it's the same thing. Element of array of 0 to element of array of n minus 1. While input, each element is separated by new line. So input new element is, sorry, each element is separated by new line. So we can take the user input also. So how do we proceed through? Have to we proceed through the program. Suppose there is an array. Is an array. Let's take an array is equals to 10, 40, 0, 5, 9, 0 and 30. So here what if you have to find the size of the array? Given that it is not specified here, while the user is inputting the value, he is not specifying the size. In this case, how do you find the value of n in order to feed it to loop through the elements? Suppose you have fixed number of elements, array size, this cannot be changed. So fixed number of elements are there. How do you find its size? Provided you can't add or delete elements. So n value usually we use to denote a size of the array, and here the size of the array, the size of the array, yes, can be found, or the n number of elements, I'm sorry, not the size of the array, the number of elements in the array is found using the size of operator. So size of the array ARR divided by the size of the array of 0. This is nothing but the size of the array. What is the size of the array? So many elements are there. These are all belonging to an integer type, right? The size of the integer in a 64-bit compiler is 4 bytes. So this is 6 4s are 24. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So sorry, there are 7 elements. There should be, so 7 4s are, so it should be 32 divided by the size of the array of 0. So this element, this size we are dividing it by. So this is 4 is equals to what? 7. So n is equals to 7. So this is how you find the value of the n. So compiler each time until you put a formula, it does not, just give the value of n like that. So n value is found this way, and if you have to find which element is 0 and you have to put it back at the end of the conveyor belt, how do you do that? So you will traverse through the each element of the array. Then if it is 0, you will not capture it or you will not add it into the array. So 5 is added, next 9 is added, then 0 is kept, then 13 is added. At the end, we will check with the size of the array and the counter value, and we will replace it by the number of zeros. So for those of you who are wondering how to do it, let's come back. So how many inputs are we supposed to take? What are the inputs that we are supposed to take? Let's say an array, chocolate array of size, something that the user, however, how many ever elements he wants to add. Let's take some arbitrary number of elements or the number of packets. Number of packets. So this let's say it is 14. This is fine. Okay. How do you find the size? So int n is equals to the size of array divided by the size of array of 0. As discussed, we can find the size like this. So if you can just print this, you will be able to percentage t and n. So this will give you the, oh, I'm sorry, this should be chocolates, right? CH4C. This should be CH4COLAT, chocolate. So the number of elements are 8, right? So this is how you find the value of n. Now, next task. We have found the value of n. We have also entered the array or the packets with the chocolates. The packets without any chocolates, we have to put it at the end of the array. So this one, we will just try to print. Printf the packets before removing the empty ones. The packet size, the packet, okay, the packets, let's take it packets before removing the empty ones. Okay. So let's take a for loop. Let's take I and print is equals to 0, I less than n, and I plus plus. So we will traverse through. So we will just printf chocolates of I. Print it this way. So after this, we have to find the 0 elements and put it at the end of the conveyor belt. For that, let's take a function to do that. So push zeros to n. Let's take push 0 to n. It's always a good programming practice to start a function name with the lowercase alphabet and then the consecutive words with the uppercase alphabet. Here we will pass the chocolate array, and then we will also pass the size of the array. Okay, so should we return something or just we will print it at the, we will just change it. Okay, so here what is that? Push 0 end. So here we have received int choco array comma int n. Let's take int n. Now the task. What is the task you have to do? Let's take one counter. Int count is equals to 0. Next, what are we supposed to do? We will traverse through the array. Let's traverse through the array. Let's take a for loop for that. I less than n, I plus plus. Now, what is the task is, if the element is 0, if the chocolate of I, until the chocolate of I is not equal to 0, then we have to the counter value, we will keep it, we will reassign the counter value every time and fill in the non-zero elements. So the chocolates chocolate it is. Chocolate count. Inside the count position, we will put the chocolate of I. Right? We will increment the counter value each time. At zeroth position, if it is non-zero in the first instance, at the zeroth position, if the element is non-zero, it will be added to the array. Otherwise, it will just skip. In the next iteration, if the uh, element is non-zero, it will be stored in the first position or the zeroth position or the first element, and the counter value increases each time. So this is how you do it. So what about filling the rest of the array? So while the counter value is still less than n, well, the counter value remains lesser than n, till then you have to iterate. So to iterate that, so we will fill the chocolate of the count value to 0. We will fill them with 0 and increment the counter to value. Now in this case we have taken all the non-zero elements at the beginning of the array. At the end of the array, we have added all zeros, or we have appended all the zeros at the end. So now if you can print that. So print the packets after pushing the empty ones at the end. So here we will print using a for loop for int I is equals to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. So we will increment, we will print %t, comma, chocolate of. So we'll print this. After the element, we will leave a space. So we will do the same here. We will leave a space after the element. Chocolate, just chocolate. And that's it. So that's it. Let's try to. So return type is, okay, we have not returned specify the return type. I'm sorry, it's void, right? It has to be void because we are not returning any value. Then chocolate undeclared. So where is chocolate? There's chocolate at the 8th line. Oh, we are given only choco here. If given only choco here, let's keep it to choco alone. Try. Okay, so I have to use /n here. /n here. This will sort this out. So the packets before removing the empty ones. So 4, 3 as it is output. So the packets after pushing the empty ones at the end. So at the end, so this will be 4, 3, 5, you see 0 is replaced by 5, 12 is replaced by, 5 is replaced by 12, and 5 is here replaced 14. Everything is pushed into all the non-zero packets is pushed to the front, and the 0 ones are pushed at the back. So I hope you understood how the coding questions are. These are few of the questions that were asked in the previous batches. These are very simple to solve unless you understand the problem statements clearly. You have to look into each constraint. So the constraints and examples are more or less enough to convey what output or what how you have to code or plan writing your code. So try to keep the statements as minimal as possible. Do not complicate writing the code. Sometimes the complexity, the space and the time complexity is even noted or taken care. So please take care of all that, and all the very best to you guys. Please rock the exam. Thank you all. Have a good day.